So you're the Assistant Director of Sustainable Duke. So that means you must have a large interest in trying to better the environment. So when was this interest triggered for you?
So I always remember going camping with my family growing up in Indiana, and a lot of our time would just be out spending time fishing, hiking, things like that. And since then, I've tried to figure out how do I keep incorporating stuff like that in my day-to-day. So I went to college, and I was like, how do I take my desire to do accounting and economics and figure out a way to add the environmental activist life that I wanted to play into that? I started taking many courses in environmental science or environmental economics, and then here I am today working at Duke, doing what I've always wanted to do.
What inspired you to go into a job that had such an impact on bettering the environment?
Every day it's really hard to see environmental degradation on a worldwide scale and seeing people constantly doing decisions that might not be the best for the environment. So I wanted to figure out how to kind of influence those human behaviors in a way that will either reduce the amount of degradation they're personally doing in their life, or maybe create a policy that will actually help broader state goals, local goals, or national goals in terms of preserving land, safeguarding water, and things like that.
You're the Assistant Director of Sustainable Duke. So how did you acquire this position?
So after I finished grad school, I applied to a job in the Duke Carbon Offsets Initiative, which is housed under Sustainable Duke. Through that, over the past couple of years when I was working in that department, a position opened up for Assistant Director in Sustainable Duke, which would focus more on campus work, and that was something I was really excited about. And so I applied and got accepted and took the job pretty immediately.
Prior to this job, you went to college. What did your education look like before this?
So after high school, I went to Manchester College to study accounting and economics. So economics is really great in figuring out how people think and how to influence them. But it's seeing as just a set of tools, I wanted to find what can I apply it to. And so the environment was readily available, where my college actually had programs in environmental economics. And so I was like, great. I took that class and I really liked it. I wanted to say, what other graduate school programs are out there that align with that? And so after graduating college, I applied to half a dozen or more master's and PhD programs, and I got into a number of them, but the one I was most excited about was Duke's Nicholas School of the Environment program. They have a lot of opportunity for students to branch out into many other interest areas, and so I went there and I still wanted to do environmental economics, but they had the opportunity to also add a master's of forestry, which allowed me to add the harder science background that I didn't actually have before, since I studied mostly social sciences. After taking those courses in forestry, I started going off and trying to figure out how do I merge my world of economics and forestry, and it led me down the path of campus sustainability and looking at the local urban forest that we find ourselves in.
Before you became the assistant director, did you have any jobs that involved environmental science?
Yes. One thing that was really great about the Nicholas School, and college does this also really well, is that there's plenty of opportunities for internships. And so one of my first internships while at the Nicholas School was with the Nature Conservancy in Durham. At the Nature Conservancy, my job was to analyze fire weather patterns and trying to identify, is there a reason why we're having large wildfires, and are there any opportunities that we could do things that are called prescribed fire to hopefully mitigate any future large wildfires that might happen? I worked with another student at Duke's Nicholas School, and our job was to figure out how many trees are currently on campus, what are the size, height, weight, width of those things, and then trying to figure out what's the general health of those trees. And so we started a survey of all campus trees. It was a really great opportunity to really get your hands in the business of actual tree work, and also working closely with Duke's facilities program, which tries to figure out how do we more efficiently manage these trees. And so it was really great to meet a bunch of different people and learn a lot more about our local trees.
You're the assistant director of Sustainable Duke. So what does this role entail as assistant director?
Generally, what I do is my goal is to try and help be the central support staff for the entire office. And so serving as central support for each of those programs comes with budgeting, making sure that everybody is having the money needed to run the programs that they want to better Duke's sustainability. Other things that I get to work out with are website design and maintenance. I also have been a little bit more in hand recently working with students on campus sustainability project management. And so that gives me a chance to meet the students who have very direct passion and direct engagement with many things on campus regards to sustainability. sustainability and come up with strategies that actually take their passion and apply to a way that would actually make a big impact at Duke.
After doing some research, I found that Sustainable Duke is a 17-year plan that started in 2007, and it hopes to make all of Duke carbon neutral by 2024. So have you been involved with this plan since its roots in 2007? Or if not, when did you get involved, and why did you want to get involved?
So in 2007, I was a freshman in college, so I was not yet involved here at Duke. I joined Duke in 2011, and so our office, thankfully, has one person who's been there since the very beginning, and I've been slowly gleaning information from her. It's actually right now we're updating our climate action plan and trying to figure out how do we move on to the future. We're coming up with some pretty strong strategies and ones that are kind of out of the box a little bit and hopefully enables us to reduce emissions quickly by that point.
What triggered this interest on Duke's behalf to become carbon neutral?
That one, I'm not necessarily sure the exact reasoning, but what I would venture to guess is that many other universities have actually signed this commitment that's called the American College and University President's Climate Commitment. And that commitment signs schools up to say, we are going to be climate neutral, and they set a date. And so Duke University saw that a lot of peer institutions were all signing up for it. And so we're trying to figure out, okay, great. Let's figure out a way to stay with all of our peers and come up with a year that's fairly aggressive. And so we picked 2024, which is quite a bit earlier than many other schools. So Duke has actually been moving really quickly and trying to figure out how do we reduce our emissions on campus and support the other schools that have later dates, because now they're looking into some of the strategies we've done on campus that might work at their schools.
Duke has a series of plans that will help the campus become carbon neutral by 2024. So have all the planned actions been carried out in the past few years?
Yes and no. There are certain things that we've been able to do and certain things we have not been able to do. Some of the things we've been able to do are taking the coal that we used to use on campus to help create steam to heat our buildings, and we moved to natural gas instead. Other things that we've been able to do are increase the building energy efficiency of our on-campus buildings by 12%. And some of the new things that we're now venturing into are doing complete LED retrofits of some campus buildings, replacing all shower heads, faucets with low flow, just to really start hammering away and making our buildings as efficient as possible. Things that we haven't been as successful in is particularly in the commuting and air travel. So Duke has included employee commuting and air travel as emissions that we need to count and figure out a way to reduce. But over the past decade, we've increased the number of employees who work for Duke. They're living farther and farther away. So all of those things have been slowly increasing our emissions, and we haven't been as successful. So this year, we're actually using our campus sustainability committee, and we're focusing on what strategies can we put in place to reduce commuting and air travel emissions.
What are the actions that Sustainable Duke plans to do in 2018 in order to reduce the carbon emissions of Duke's campus?
So one of those I already mentioned was adding LED lighting in 15 of our major academic buildings, also installing low-flow water faucets and shower heads on campus, with the goal of eventually adding them more and more to dorms. Other things that we're looking into is installing a 750 kilowatt solar system on top of one of our parking garages that provides shade for the cars during the day and will help power that garage as well as some of the other buildings around it.
So out of all of those actions that are being taken now, which one do you think will have the greatest impact on reducing the carbon emissions?
I would probably say the lighting retrofit. Taking that, you usually get a pretty quick payback, which is really great in terms of the energy savings.
Do you think all of these actions that have been planned for 2018 will be carried out?
I think a lot of the ones in terms of LED lighting and the solar system and things, writing the new climate action plan, will be carried out. They're a lot easier to control. When it comes to employee commuting, the number of points of contact are so much more, and so many people have varying needs that need to be met. So we have to work on that between now and 2024 a little bit more.
Carbon neutrality is fairly difficult to calculate because you have to calculate how much you guys put out and how much certain systems take in. So what models or programs does Duke use to calculate the carbon neutrality?
I created a spreadsheet that would be used by businesses, whoever could use it. My goal is to try and take that process, collect data from various people on campus. They take that energy into account, and then I multiply it by an emission factor, and I get a number. I think it's been a lot of work that's been done before my time here at Duke, going into making sure all of these systems are in place, but now it's super easy to do.
So what's your favorite part about being the Assistant Director of Sustainable Duke?
My favorite part is actually working with students. I love being able to sit down with them and have meetings or actually try to strategize around a project and coming up with ways that they can participate in sustainability in a much broader way than just learning about it in the classroom.
So do you have any suggestions or tips for the youth at RTHS on how we can lower our impact on the environment?
So my recommendation for you is getting informed is number one, getting involved with the local community, continue to learn about climate change. If you ever are interested, I'm happy to talk to students about ideas and things like that, since I work with some other high schools locally on that.